Hi, everyone. My story began in May of 2015. I was an active 49-year-old. I was in very good health. I always have positive annual checkups. I never been hospitalized except to give birth. Health was something I never really thought about. Frankly, I took it for granted. One Friday morning, I got up and made some coffee and sat down to tackle my email. All of a sudden, I just started feeling a little bit lightheaded, a bit nauseous. So I crawled back into bed. I thought I had the flu. I called my husband because he was already at work and just let him know that I was going to stay home sick that day. While I was talking to him, I started having this incredible, unbelievable chest pain. It just came out of nowhere. I felt like concrete walls were crushing me in all directions, and I just couldn't catch my breath. Um, it was really awful. My husband told me it sounded like I was having a heart attack and I needed to call 911. At first, I told him that was just ridiculous, but it kept getting worse. And so I did make that call. The paramedics immediately did an ECG. They gave me aspirin and nitro, and they raced me to the nearest hospital. So clearly, it was a good call to make. The emergency room team, they were terrific. They were really calm, they were fast, they were thorough, they knew exactly what they were doing, but they really seemed fixated on my drug and alcohol intake, which really confused me a little bit. But I now know they were really grasping at straws to find any possible reason for an early heart attack in someone with my blood work, quite frankly. Um, I quickly got kicked upstairs to the ICU for a couple of days. And all like kept going through my head the whole time is like, this is not real. This can't possibly be happening. But over the next 4 days, doctors came in and out of my room. They had their brows were furrowed and they had nothing helpful to say. One of them would say, "You had a heart attack." And the next one would say, "Who told you that?" And they were seemed horrified that someone would say I had a heart attack. They said it was very unlikely I had a heart attack because I didn't fit the profile. I had a trip to New York planned that weekend to celebrate my upcoming 50th birthday. So I kept asking them to let me go home because I needed to wrap up some work and pack for my trip. And basically, I just didn't have time for this heart attack thing. So eventually, my doctor came in and she told me in no uncertain terms that whatever this was, still no commitment that it was a heart attack, but whatever this was, it was the quote unquote real deal, and that New York was off the table. And that was really another blow at that time. I was so looking forward to that trip. On the fifth day, I had an angiogram at the University of Ottawa Heart Institute that explained I did indeed have a heart attack, and it was caused by SCAD, which stands for spontaneous coronary artery dissection. I was told SCAD is extremely rare and not to worry about it once I healed. I was allowed to come home the next day, and that's when my real journey began. After my SCAD, I was just exhausted all the time. I felt isolated and alone, as much as I have the best support system of family and friends, for which I'm very grateful. I still felt like no one truly understood what I was going through. I was afraid to be alone at home. I was afraid to drive my car. I was afraid to carry a bag of milk. I was just completely overwhelmed. You know, being told that one of your arteries spontaneously ripped open and caused a heart attack. It's kind of like walking around with an explosive device implanted in your body and you just don't know what might set it off. But meanwhile, doctors are saying, oh, it's healing itself and you can pretty much go back to your life. 10 years later, with the ongoing research, we now know SCAD's not so rare, but it does continue to go often unrecognized and untreated, sometimes with terrible consequences for the patient. It especially affects younger, healthy women, and that's put it under the radar in clinical settings until recently. Thinking back, I was fortunate in so many ways. My husband recognized the symptoms and made me call 911. The chest pain prompted the paramedics and the ER staff to look at my heart. I live in Ottawa with access to the care, education, and supports offered by the Heart Institute. I participated in cardiac rehab, which provided me a safe space to learn my new limits, build my strength, and face really one of the most difficult challenges, which is the fear that it might happen again. The program and staff were extremely helpful in my recovery on the physical side, but there was no formal focus on the emotional aspect of recovery, which was something I very much needed. I found that emotional support in the Women at Heart peer support program at the University of Ottawa Heart Institute. I met and bonded with other women, and I learned about living with heart disease in a supportive space. The program was so helpful to me that I became a peer support leader. And later on, I advocated for and worked with the Canadian Women's Heart Health Centre to adapt the program specifically for women with SCAD. I'm really so thankful now that we have a virtual program in Canada that serves women with SCAD across the country. We have a team of peer leaders in the SCAD program, and we're able to offer sessions throughout the year. Through this program, I also learned about the inequities in research and understanding of heart health between men and women. I became pretty frustrated by these inequities, and I've since become an advocate for women's heart health, particularly SCAD. Looking back now, I really am thankful to my SCAD for introducing me to people I would never have met, people I now consider a second family. They're strong, diverse, inspirational group of women living with various heart diagnoses, working hard together to help others and to affect broader change. When I reflect on my life since my SCAD, life is more precious now. I appreciate so much that I was here to see my daughter get married and my grandson born. My husband and I both took my mother and mother-in-law to Hawaii for their 80th birthdays, and we made some wonderful memories. I love to travel, and I'm learning to stop putting things off for someday. I think my message to other women is that you could be me. You can indeed have a heart attack, even if you're young and healthy. You need to advocate for yourself if you know something's wrong. And finally, there are some things we just can't control or manage, and just knowing that can save your life. Thank you.